you about my daughter here. This is Riley. With the terminal genetic disease called MMIHS. When she was first born, they knew that something was wrong within the first 3 days, because as we were going to leave the hospital, they checked her chart, and there was no evidence that she had a wet diaper. So they admitted her to the NICU, they ran a lot of tests, and they found that her intestines were malformed as well. This might seem like an easy fix, but GI issues are very complex. So she was diagnosed, and shortly after, we were able to bring her home with a very grim prognosis. They told us that she wouldn't live past a couple of years, and that her life would be hallmarked by lots of medical intervention, lots of surgeries, possibly intestinal transplant or multi-organ transplant, and a short death. My husband and I refuse to accept this. My husband is a very godly man. You may have seen him wrangling my toddlers in the hallway. And he told me that we would not accept her fate, and that we were going to pray, God was going to give us the answers. We had no evidence that she could heal, and we only had what the doctors had told us. But we know that God knows better than doctors do. So we brought her home, and she did fantastic while she was breastfeeding. She didn't have any GI issues. We did have to use catheters to help her go pee. Once we started solids, every issue that the doctor said would happen, happened. Her stomach got big and distended. She ended up on TPN, which is IV nutrition through a port in her chest. Her liver started to fail, and she was diagnosed with intestinal failure. She had 16 surgeries in the span of a year, and we were almost never able to leave the hospital safely. We would wake up in the middle of the night to her vomiting, and we would have to rush her to the hospital. Many times, she would be life-flighted. During this period, we continued to pray. We did not give up hope. My husband and I would get on our knees every single night after we tucked her in, and we would pray that God would give us the answers. One day, I felt a message come through to me that it was the gas. So, part of the disorder that Riley has is that your intestines are weak and they move food through very slowly. So when food goes in, it doesn't come out. It sits, it ferments, and it rots. I knew that if we could stop the gas from happening and the fermentation that was happening in her gut, that we could potentially increase her intestinal motility. What I didn't know was what we could feed her in place of these fermentable foods. Because almost everything is fermentable, except what? Meat. There you go. But I didn't know that you could live off of just meat. But my husband did. My husband did the Hollywood physique diet when he was a bodybuilder. And he was ripped, and he looked amazing. He still does. And so he told me, you don't need bread to live. I'm an Italian. That was revolutionary for me. I'd never heard something like that in my life. Pasta is a whole food group. So we reached out to a naturopath. At this point, Riley was 26 pounds. She was almost 3 years old. She wasn't speaking. She wasn't walking. She wasn't playing or smiling. She had had a very brutal surgery just before this photo was taken. And we knew that her body could not take anymore. One more emergency surgery could be the end. And so, through prayer, I found this incredible naturopath whose name was Becky Potter. She passed away a couple of years ago, but God put her in our life exactly when we needed her. She told us about the GAPS diet. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. Now, the GAPS diet is incredible, but it does include plants. And so I said, she can't have onions, garlic, carrots. She said, try no plant GAPS. So we did. Riley has a G-tube, and we were able to blend up meat and Meatstock and put it through her G-tube. She was too averse to eating at that point. We put it through her G-tube, and within 2 months, this was her before. You can see her ribs, her shoulder blades. Within 2 months, we had a healthy, beautiful girl. She healed right before our eyes. She was playing, she was climbing, she was walking and talking. She was a little behind on her milestones. She wasn't keeping up with kids her age, but very quickly, she did keep up. Shortly after, she got her central line removed. She was no longer dependent on TPN, and she was declared out of intestinal failure. Her liver healed, and she has been 100% carnivore with no cheating for 4 years. With the same diagnosis, and 6 of them have come out of intestinal failure. If you think that you're too far gone for carnivore to help you, you cannot get worse than terminal, progressive, genetic, and multi-organ failure. You got this.